The most terrifying scene in Peter Jackson's King Kong wasn't actually created in 2005. It was born way back in 1933, and it was so brutal, so visceral, that it was physically ripped out of the original film negative and just, well, destroyed. It vanished. But here's the thing about Peter Jackson. He didn't just want to remake a movie. He wanted to resurrect a piece of history that had been censored for 70 years. He was basically digging up ghosts.
That is the perfect place to start, and welcome to Entre, Líneas Between the Lines. Today, we're not just reviewing a blockbuster, we're getting into the obsession, the technical madness, and all the forgotten history behind the 2005 epic that is King Kong.
And honestly, if you've somehow missed this one, maybe you live on a very remote, fog-shrouded island, we should probably set the stage just a little bit.
Right. Context is vital here. We're talking about a story set in 1933, right in the middle of the Great Depression, and that's really the engine of the whole plot. You have this brazen, maybe even reckless film director, Carl Denham, and he convinces a desperate, jobless actress, Anne Darrow, and a pretty principled screenwriter, Jack Driscoll, to get on a ship.
Because in 1933, people would do anything for a job, even sail off to the completely unknown Skull Island. And what they find is not exactly a tropical paradise. It's more of a living, breathing, prehistoric nightmare.
Exactly. And ruling over that nightmare is a colossal gorilla. Denham, just blinded by ambition, captures this eighth wonder of the world to display him in New York City. And, well, we all know how that ends. It's pure tragedy on top of the skyline. But to really get the 2005 film, you have to understand that for Peter Jackson, this wasn't just another job, it was a lifelong obsession.
That's what I found so incredible. This all goes back to him being a 9-year-old kid watching the original 1933 film on a tiny TV in New Zealand. It didn't just entertain him, it completely rewired his brain.
It absolutely defined his career. By the time he was 12, he wasn't just watching it anymore, he was trying to remake it himself. He grabbed his parents' Super 8 camera and just started shooting. And you have to appreciate the, let's say, special effects budget of a 12-year-old in the 70s.
Right.
He built the Kong model himself with wire and rubber, but the fur. The fur was the masterstroke.
I love this detail. It just shows how laser-focused he was, even back then.
To get that authentic gorilla texture, he actually convinced his mother to let him cut up her old fur coat.
He destroyed his mom's coat. That's a bold move for a 12-year-old.
Oh yeah, he said he just punctured it with holes to get as much fur as possible.
Yeah.
That coat became the king. Jackson has always said that he became a filmmaker specifically so he could one day remake King Kong. Everything else, Lord of the Rings, all of it, was just paving the road to get back to Skull Island.
It's wild to think that Middle-earth was essentially just a resume builder for this. But here's the twist that really got me. He actually had the green light to make this movie way earlier, right? Long before Frodo even left the Shire.
He did. This is one of the great what-ifs in modern cinema. Back in 1996, Jackson and his partner Fran Walsh, they had a finished script for Universal. They were ready to go. But if you were to read that script today, it is completely unrecognizable compared to the summer epic film we got in 2005.
Unrecognizable how? Was the story different?
The whole tone, the entire thing was flipped. The 96 script was a lighthearted, pulpy adventure. You should think more The Mummy or Indiana Jones. It was packed with jokes, witty banter, breezy action. It wasn't tragedy, it was a popcorn flick.
That is so hard to picture considering how heavy and almost operatic the 2005 movie feels.
But they were serious about it. They'd even met with Kate Winslet, who Jackson had just worked with on Heaven and Creatures, to offer her the role of Anne Darrow.
Wait, Kate Winslet, fresh off Titanic, doing a comedy action King Kong. That's a completely different timeline. So what happened? They had the script, the star.
And this is where everything gets complicated. In 1997, just as they were gearing up, Universal abruptly pulled the plug. They canceled the whole thing, the reason. Something the industry called Monster Panic.
Monster Panic. That sounds like a cheesy horror movie title.
It really does, but it was a very real fear from the studio's perspective. They were worried about market saturation. You have to remember the context of the late 90s. Roland Emmerich's Godzilla was about to come out with massive hype. Disney was releasing Mighty Joe Young, another giant ape movie. Universal just got cold feet. They thought audiences would be totally sick of giant monsters destroying cities.
So they shelved King Kong because they thought Godzilla was going to use up all the world's monster enthusiasm.
Which is pretty ironic considering how that Godzilla movie was received. But that rejection, that no, was the best thing that could have possibly happened. Because Jackson, heartbroken, put the monkey aside and decided to go adapt some unfilmable books by a guy named Tolkien.
So, no cancellation in 97 means no Lord of the Rings.
Almost certainly. And without the incredible success and the huge technical leaps they made with Lord of the Rings, he never would have had the clout or the technology to go back to Universal years later and make the serious, dark version of Kong he actually wanted to make.
Wow. It's amazing how things work out. A no at the right time changed everything. Now, speaking of his history, when he finally did get to make the movie in 2005, he didn't forget where he came from. He started in low-budget horror, and I spotted a very specific little Easter egg for his old fans.
You're talking about the cage in the cargo hold?
Exactly. On the ship, the SS Venture, if you look really closely in the hold, there's a cage, and it's labeled Sumatran Rat Monkey.
Which is a direct callback to his 1992 cult classic, Brain Dead or Dead Alive in North America.
That's the one where the monkey bite turns people into zombies, right? The lawnmower scene.
The very same. It's the creature that starts the whole zombie plague. It's Jackson's way of signing his work, reminding us that the guy making this huge, prestigious epic is the same guy who made one of the goriest movies of all time.
It's a great touch, but that horror background, it actually caused a bit of friction, didn't it? Because while he's putting in these fun Easter eggs, the production itself ran into a massive crisis over the film's tone.
And this led to something nobody expected, a complete musical meltdown.
Howard Shore.
Howard Shore, yeah. He and Jackson were this inseparable team after Lord of the Rings. They won Oscars together. Everyone was expecting another masterpiece. And Shore had written and recorded a huge chunk of the score.
But then, just weeks before the premiere,
Disaster. Shore was off the project. Creative differences was the official line. From what we know, Shore's vision was more classical, maybe a bit too 1930s period accurate. Jackson wanted something more savage, more primitive. He wanted the sound of a monster, not a symphony. They couldn't agree, so Shore walked.
weeks before release, for a 3-hour movie with no music. That's a producer's worst nightmare.
Total panic. They brought in James Newton Howard at the absolute last minute, and the task he was given was just impossible. Compose, record, and mix the score for a 3-hour epic film in less than 6 weeks.
6 weeks? That's insane. That usually takes months.
It was a flat-out marathon. He basically had to live in the studio. But the result is incredible. It doesn't sound rushed at all. It's one of the great examples of musical rescue in Hollywood history.
And talking about feats, let's get into the visual side, because the obsession with detail here is it's mind-blowing. The recreation of 1930s New York wasn't just a backdrop. It was a full-on construction project.
The team at Weta Digital spent 18 months building the 3D digital model of the city and, of course, the Empire State Building. They modeled it down to the individual rhythms.
We have constructed everything.
18 months of digital architecture.
Okay, here's the crazy comparison I found. The real Empire State Building, the one made of actual steel and concrete, was built in only 13 months back in the 30s.
Think about that for a second. It took longer to build the fake digital version than it took thousands of workers to build the actual skyscraper. That just gives you a sense of the sheer scale and density Jackson was demanding. He wasn't just building a set, he was trying to build a time machine.
That is just absurd in the best way. And it wasn't just the visuals. The sound design has its own secret. Kong's roar, it's terrifying, it rattles your bones. But it's not just some generic monster noise, is it?
No, not at all. They wanted something that felt organic, but impossible. So sound engineers took a lion's roar. But a lion isn't big enough, so they played the recording backwards. When you reverse a natural sound, especially an aggressive one, the whole shape of it changes. The inhale comes where the exhale should be. It sounds fundamentally wrong to the human ear. It triggers this subconscious feeling of unease. Then they slowed it down by half. And that combination, reversed and slowed, gave it this deep, prehistoric quality.
So it makes the animal part of your brain pay attention, because you can't quite place what made that sound. But, okay, the pixels and the sound are one thing. The soul of the beast that came from a person.
It did. And this is so important when we talk about performance capture. We have to talk about Andy Serkis.
He played Kong, obviously, with the motion capture suit, but he was actually pulling double duty on this movie.
He was. He also played Lumpy, the ship's cook, the rough, superstitious guy you see in the galley.
So the guy playing the monster is also playing one of the humans who's most terrified of the monster. But his prep work for Kong is what really fascinated me. He didn't just, watch some gorilla videos on YouTube.
Andy Serkis treats this stuff like an academic. He started by spending months at the London Zoo watching gorillas in captivity, but he realized something was wrong. The captive gorillas were depressed, neurotic. They didn't have the majesty he needed for a king who rules an entire island.
So where'd he go?
He packed his bags and went to Rwanda. He literally hiked into the Virunga Mountains to study wild mountain gorillas with the Dizzy and Fossey Foundation.
Now that's dedication. And apparently that trip actually changed the film in a very specific scientific way.
It did. While he was out there, Serkis noticed a detail that Hollywood had been getting wrong for literally decades. Yep. We all have that image in our heads of King Kong beating his chest with clenched fists, right?
Yeah, of course, the classic monster pose.
Well, Serkis saw that real gorillas don't do that. They don't use fists, they use open, cupped palms.
Really? Open hands?
Yes. Gorillas have these large air sacs in their chests, and when they strike them with cupped palms, it creates this incredible resonance, like a drum. It's a booming, popping sound, not a dull thud. Circus brought that observation back to Peter Jackson, and they changed the animation. The 2005 Kong beats his chest with open palms, correcting a movie cliche that had been around since the 1930s.
That is such a cool detail. It makes him feel like a real animal, not just a movie monster.
Yeah.
But speaking of monsters, we have to talk about the things on that island that aren't gorillas.
Ah, yes, the
Yeah.
creative ecology of Skull Island.
Specifically the pit scene. Those worms.
Those Carnictus.
Ugh, just the name gives me the creeps. Those giant toothy worm things that eat Lumpy Circus' other character. It is one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen in a PG-13 movie.
It is pure nightmare fuel. But there's a fascinating bit of lore behind them. They aren't just random monsters thrown in there for shock value. The design team actually created a whole biological history for them. They're evolved intestinal parasites.
Wait, what? Intestinal parasites. Break that down.
Okay, so the theory from the official World of Kong lore book is that for centuries, giant dinosaurs, the V-Rexes, would die and fall into these deep chasms. The parasites living in their guts would then spill out into the darkness of the pit. Over millions of years, these tapeworms and things evolved. They grew massive in all that sludge and became the blind predators we see in the movie.
That is simultaneously the most brilliant and the most revolting thing I've ever heard. It makes that scene so much worse knowing they're basically giant tapeworms.
It adds this layer of biological horror that you just don't get in most blockbusters. It implies a real, functioning, if horrifying, ecosystem.
Okay, let's cleanse the palate from giant tapeworms. Let's jump to the end. The climax. We're on top of the Empire State Building. The biplanes are attacking.
And here we find a cameo that has a lot of meta-cinematic weight to it.
We see the pilot and the gunner in one of the planes that eventually kills Kong. And the pilot is Peter Jackson himself.
Right, but the gunner.
Yeah.
The gunner is Rick Baker.
And for anyone who doesn't follow makeup and effects history, Rick Baker is an absolute legend.
He's maybe the greatest practical effects artist of his generation. But more importantly for this story, he was the man inside the King Kong suit for the 1976 remake.
So you have the director of the new movie and the man who was Kong in the previous movie teaming up to kill the new Kong.
It's incredibly symbolic. The old guard and the new creator are the ones who bring the beast down. It's a way of saying goodbye to the man in a suit era of monsters and welcoming the digital age, but doing it with real respect.
And speaking of respect for the past, we have to go back to that spider pit scene we mentioned right at the start, the one that was ripped out of the 1933 film.
This might be the ultimate example of Jackson's obsession. In the original 1933 movie, after Kong shakes the sailors off that log, they fall into a ravine. And originally, they were eaten alive by giant spiders, crabs, and other horrible bugs.
And the audiences in 1933 they couldn't take it.
Not at all. People screamed, some apparently fainted, people ran out of the theater. The studio panicked and cut the scene right after the premiere. The actual footage was destroyed. It became the holy grail of lost cinema.
So Jackson recreates a version of it in his movie with the worms we just talked about.
He does, but he didn't stop there. And this is what makes Jackson different. For the DVD release, he decided to recreate the original 1933 scene, but not with his modern CGI.
How did you do it?
He practiced what you could call cinematic archaeology. He used stop-motion animation, the exact same puppet designs from the 30s, the same type of camera lenses, and even period-accurate black and white film techniques. He reconstructed the lost scene exactly as it would have looked if it had never been destroyed.
That's just pure love for cinema. He didn't do that for the box office, he did that for history.
It wasn't for the general public, it was for the archives.
But there's one final curiosity, one final tribute that Jackson tried to pull off, and honestly, this one kind of breaks my heart.
This is the most emotional story from the whole production, I think.
It involves Fay Wray, the original Ann Darrow, the woman who screamed in the palm of the original Kong back in '33.
Jackson actually tracked her down during pre-production. She was 96 years old at the time.
And he had a very specific idea for her, didn't he?
He wanted her to have a cameo at the very, very end of the film.
Yeah.
He wanted Fay Wray to be the one to deliver the final, iconic line.
It wasn't the airplanes, it was Beauty Killed the Beast.
Can you just imagine the power of that? The original Beauty, 7 decades later, closing the loop on the story. It would have tied the two films together across a century.
Did she agree?
At first she said no. She felt the original was perfect and shouldn't be touched. But Jackson kept talking to her, they developed a friendship, and she started to warm to the idea. She saw it as a way to, close the circle of her own career and say goodbye to the character that defined her entire life.
Yeah.
It really looked like it was going to happen. But tragically, Fay Wray passed away in her sleep during pre-production, just before they had a chance to film the scene.
Oh, that's just devastating.
It is. So when you watch the movie now and you hear Jack Black deliver that final line, it's not just an ending for Kong. It's a ghost ending. It's an echo of a legend who left us just moments before she could say her final goodbye.
That completely changes how I see that whole final sequence. It's a tribute that isn't physically there, but you can feel the space where it was supposed to be.
And if you connect that back to the start, Just like that censored spider pit scene was resurrected, this entire film was Peter Jackson's attempt to recapture a feeling that was lost to time. It wasn't just a remake, it was a reconstruction of a childhood memory.
Well, on that note, we want to thank you for joining us on this trip to Skull Island. It has been quite a ride.
And remember, for those of you who want to go even deeper, our Entre Líneas member area has exclusive analysis and advantages that we don't share anywhere else.
Before you go, though, we have a question for you. Which of these stories changed your perspective on the film the most? Was it the scientific detail of the open palm chest beat? Or was it the ghost of Fay Wray haunting that final line?
We'd love to hear what you think. Let us know in the comments.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next one.